Good afternoon, El Segundo, and thank you for joining us for our third virtual town hall meeting. My name is Dr. Randal Collins. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of El Segundo, and I thank you for joining us. And we have a panel here for you today to answer your questions that you have provided over the past 48 hours, 72 hours. And with that, I would like to just start off with some unfortunately bad news, and that is that just recently here this morning, LA County Public Health Director Barbara Ferrer acknowledged during a Board of Supervisors meeting that the safer at home orders will, with all certainty, be extended for the next 3 months. She did say, though, that an official order hasn't been issued yet, but that the timeline would only change if there is a dramatic change to the virus and tools at hand. Dr. Ferrer also indicated that she hopes the expected 3-month extension will be accompanied by relaxed restrictions over the next 3 months. So unfortunately, we're all in this together, and we know that it's a unprecedented and challenging time. And we just want you to know that the City of El Segundo is here for you, and we are working hard to make sure everybody is safe, everybody is healthy, and that we're responding effectively, and that we are providing as much information to you as possible, which is the reason for today's virtual town hall. With that, today we have 7 panel members. Councilmember Carol Pirsztuk, Councilmember Scott Nicol, Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss, Police Chief Bill Whalen, Director of Recreation and Parks Meredith Pettit, Dr. Marc Cohen, and Incident Commander Jeff Leyman. And with that, we'll allow each one of them a brief introductory comment before we get into your questions. So we'll start with Councilmember Carol Pirsztuk.
Welcome, El Segundo. We're so excited that you're here. As a city council, we are here for you. We know that this is hard and challenging, but I just wanted to let you know that we are bound to follow the county guidelines, and at times we only hear about them as when you hear about them. So I know some of the frustration this building is not knowing, and we understand that, and we really are trying to get ahead of it. But it's challenging when we hear them at the same time the public's hearing them, as far as the guidelines. But what we can do is ensure that we have the information available for you on our website when we get it. So one of the things that we want to entrust to you to let you know is that you don't have to stay tuned to the news at 24/7. We will be putting all the information that comes out on our website. We'll do that for you, because I know it's really hard. You're trying to go around your daily business, and it's hard to keep abreast of everything that's going on. So one of our commitments to you is communication. And so as information comes out, we're putting on our website and we're pushing out information. Our incident management team has done an amazing job of keeping everybody abreast of what's going on, and we're going to continue that till the end. So I look forward to answering any questions you have for us today, and keep safe. And we are here for you as a city council.
Thank you, ma'am. And next we have Councilmember Scott Nicol.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Thank you, everyone, for attending today or tuning into this broadcast. As Councilmember Pirsztuk said, it is unfortunate that we get the information at the same time you get the information. It's frustrating. We are doing our best, and all we ask is that ideas at this time are very powerful, so please share yours. You can email allcouncil@elsegundo.org. That's allcouncil@elsegundo.org. Any questions, concerns, or ideas that you may have. And just know that we are always listening, we're always learning, and we are trying to adapt to these changing circumstances as they present. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. I'm here today representing the City Manager's office. And as many of you may not know, during a crisis or emergency situation, the City Manager becomes the Director of Emergency Services. So our office is responsible for overseeing all aspects of the city's response to this crisis, this emergency that we're in right now. Part of that is, well, the top priority there is really ensuring the safety and well-being of the citizens of El Segundo. And in addition, we need to make sure that the citizens are informed, that people are aware of what's going on. As Councilmember Pirsztuk mentioned, communication is critical, and we're working closely with the incident management team to make sure that information is accurate and timely and out to the public as soon as possible. There's always a challenge of when we receive the information and turning it around quickly. But I think so far we're doing a really good job of getting the word out to the community so that you can be prepared and you can take the necessary steps. And as we move forward, as Dr. Collins mentioned, we're going through a 3-month extension. And the county has issued some preliminary, they're calling it a roadmap to recovery. We moved from stage 1, which was ended last Thursday, and we moved to the very early parts of stage 2 on Friday morning. As many of you have heard, that there's selective reopening of some retailers for curbside pickup only, golf courses reopening, and some other aspects of that. And the overall message of the roadmap is that it will be a very gradual process. So stage 2 has probably A, B, C, D, and E elements of it, and we're in 2A right now. Stage 3 has other loosening of restrictions. And then you move on to stage 5, which is really, I would like to say back to normal, but it's really back to normal with the existence of the coronavirus in the world. So there will still be precautions and measures that everybody needs to take, but stage 5 will be as close to that normal that we had prior to this crisis. So we look forward to just continuing to work with the community and guiding businesses and residents through those stages.
Thank you, Barbara. And now Police Chief Bill Whalen.
Thank you, Dr. Collins, and good afternoon, El Segundo. It's always an honor to be here and able to talk with you about how we will thoughtfully collaborate with you and navigate these uncharted waters. I greatly appreciate your patience, your understanding, your cooperation as we navigate this pandemic. I'm incredibly proud of all of the men and women of the El Segundo Police Department who answer the call day and night. We are staffed in our patrol division. We are ready to respond to any emergency. And I also want to acknowledge all of the other first responders and essential workers out there that are doing their jobs every day to help make this a little more palatable and help get us back on a road to recovery. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And now Director of Recreation and Parks, Meredith Pettit.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. On behalf of the Recreation and Parks Department, I just want to thank all of the residents and visitors out there for continuing to be mindful of the new park rules, keeping physical distancing while visiting the parks, and staying out of the closed areas. And as we move into reopening various park amenities and different features, that's going to continue to be extremely important to be able to allow us to become fully operational. So thank you, keep up the good work, and just remember, now's the time that keeping your mind healthy and your physical body healthy is so important during times like these. Thanks.
Thank you, Meredith. And now Dr. Marc Cohen, our new City Medical Director.
Hello, El Segundo. My name is Marc Cohen. I'm an emergency medicine physician with a subspecialty in EMS, emergency medical systems, and pre-hospital care. I'm also the medical director for the fire department for the city of El Segundo, and during the current crisis have been asked to come on board to essentially advise and guide the city from a medical perspective in terms of dealing with the new problems and issues that we face with coronavirus currently. So I'm here today to answer some of the medical questions and available to the city or other questions that come up in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you, Doctor. And finally, our incident commander of the All Hazards Incident Management Team, Lieutenant Jeff Leyman.
Thanks, Randy. Good afternoon, El Segundo residents. Thanks for joining us today. This is Lieutenant Leyman. I just wanted to point out a couple of our social media platforms that we have. This is where you can get your most updated information about everything COVID related in the city's response. It's our Facebook page, GovDeliver, the El Segundo website, and our daily mayor's update. So keep an eye on those things. And like Councilwoman Pirsztuk said earlier, we keep it updated. This is the place to go for the most updated information you can get. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Thank you, panel. Now we'll get into our first round of questions. I would invite you to mute your phones as we get into the questions. And our first question is for Council Member Pirsztuk. Ma'am, as a business owner, are there any city resources to help me understand social distancing protocols and recommendations and how to implement them within my business facility?
Yes, absolutely. There are three key groups that have been set up and designed to help you through this process. We have the All Cities Hazardous Incident Management Team, which has been set up through this whole coronavirus incident to help us and guide the city through the closures and now reopening of the city. And this team is now ready and able to help you understand the technical requirements and protocols that you need to follow to open up. So at any given time that you need help on how to open up, or if you need information on how and when you can open up, please call this team. Their phone number is 310-692-1699. That's 310-692-1699. That's our all hazardous incident team who've been working on this COVID-19 disaster since the very beginning. And we're just very thankful that we have this team, because we're the only team basically in the South Bay that has an incident team comprised of many facets of the city to help guide us through this incident. Then the other group that you can rely upon is our economic development team. They're there for you if you have any economic development questions or have any questions about support from an economic development manner. And there you can call them at 310-524-2372. That's 310-524-2372. Then the third one is our Chamber of Commerce. Our Chamber of Commerce is there to support all other business questions. And if you have any questions about partnerships or outreach, they're definitely a resource to go to. And their phone number is, which I had before. I'm not sure, I don't have it for number now, but I will share that before we end this call. But those are the three groups that you can rely on, which is the All Hazard Incident Management Team, our Economic Development Team, and the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. And then our next question for Council Member Scott Nicol. Sir, why are there such strict open space restrictions?
Randy, thank you for asking that question. The City of El Segundo unfortunately falls under the Los Angeles County orders and must comply. I know how frustrating that may be, seeing our numbers not very representative of what LA County's numbers are. The previous Safer at Home order from LA County closed all parks and trails within the county. The order was amended last Friday to allow parks, trails, and golf courses to open with additional guidelines and protocols. The City of El Segundo can choose to be more restrictive than the county, but we cannot choose to be less restrictive than the county. That's very important to understand. So far, the city has chosen to align itself directly with the county, while some of our surrounding cities have not, and they have kept their parks and trails completely closed. I hope this information is clear and understandable. And just remember, if the county makes an order, we must comply. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, sir. And then the next question for Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss. Barbara, what resources are available to help businesses?
Well, this is a great question. As we all know, we have a wonderful business community here in El Segundo, from the large Fortune 500 companies to startups from across all different industries. And businesses are really important to us. They're really important to our city. And at the onset of this, we started to gather resources for businesses, whether it be federal, state, county. We took that information and we put it on a business resource webpage on elsegundobusiness.com. And you'll see a whole list of everything that's happened so far in terms of resources for businesses. In addition to that, to posting on the website, we're using social media. We have City of El Segundo Facebook, and then City of El Segundo LinkedIn, as LinkedIn tends to be more geared towards business people. And we're sharing information there on a regular basis when new information is available. So keep track of that. We do put the most recent information out there. We're also sending announcements to our subscribers. And if you go to elsegundobusiness.com, you can subscribe to our newsletter. It's just a little box on the right. Enter your email, and we have over 6,000, I think it's 6,600 subscribers now. And so if there's something very timely that happens, we will send an email out to that group, only with information that is pertinent to businesses. And most recently, we sent out an email announcing that County Supervisor Janice Hahn has now a loan program available to small businesses with 5 or fewer employees. So those are a lot of the businesses that are being hit really hard right now. Mom and pop shops, small restaurants, and it's a grant program, and it's $5,000, up to $5,000 per business. You have to be on top of it because as with other grant programs that have come out and loan programs, the applications have just come flooding in because there are a lot of businesses who are struggling. So the application opens tomorrow at noon and closes the next day at noon. So if you want information about that, go to our website, elsegundobusiness.com, and we have information there regarding that program. So another way that we are getting out to the business community is that we have a campaign that we've just recently launched. It's called El Segundo Back to Business. And the goal of the campaign is to help guide our business community through that multi-stage reopening process so that the businesses understand the protocols, they know what needs to be in place prior to reopening, they know what needs to be posted at their place of business. So we are constantly keeping track of that and sharing that information with businesses. We've established an economic development task force, the Economic Recovery Task Force, I should say. And that's a group of about 7 key business leaders in the community, sharing information and ideas about how best to guide the city through recovery. We have a downtown specific to our downtown businesses. We have a downtown town hall group that is exploring opportunities for the downtown businesses to help them to bounce back from this, to support them as best as we possibly can as a city. And then finally, we are hosting an elected officials and business leaders roundtable. And that's going to be a recorded conversation with 9 CEOs from El Segundo businesses, so the top executives at these businesses, with Congressman Ted Lieu and Senator Ben Allen. And it'll be a back and forth dialogue. The businesses will share their best practices, lessons learned, how their industry is impacted, and they'll have the opportunity to speak to their representatives about what the city, state, and federal government can do to be more supportive to businesses.
Thank you, Barbara, and what a great great program there with El Segundo Back to Business. I look forward to seeing that program in action. Our next question is for Director of Recreation and Parks, Meredith Pettit. Meredith, if parks are open, does that include playgrounds?
No, unfortunately, playgrounds are not yet open. While the parks are technically open, activities are still limited to passive activities at this time, and while maintaining proper physical distancing. Passive activities include walking, jogging, light playing with your child, maybe a picnic, but only with the immediate members of your household only. Our various park features and different amenities will be opened in phased stages. First opening the activity areas where physical distancing can continue to be maintained, where there are limited touch points, where multiple people touch the same type of equipment, such as gate openings or drinking fountains, limited shared equipment, and we need to make sure that we have infection control protocol, such as increased cleaning and sanitizing methods in place. So unfortunately, our playgrounds are not open yet. That will be at a later stage.
Thank you, Meredith. And our next question for Chief Bill Whalen. Chief, how is the police department enforcing the Safer at Home order? And I asked this knowing that the person that submitted this question was very concerned about house parties and things that he was observing within the neighborhood where large gatherings were occurring at particular homes.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. It is important for everybody to remember that gatherings are prohibited within the city, whether inside or outside. And so since the beginning of this pandemic, we have taken a stance that we are not going to come out of the chute writing citations, that we prefer to take a glass half full approach. I believe that most people in El Segundo are trying very hard to adhere with all these orders. We also understand that the orders do change on occasion, and so sometimes it's confusing. So the direction that our officers are taking is one that we are first warning people, and then if we get non-compliance or if we're getting repeat violations to the same location, then we do have the option to issue a citation. However, very few of those have been issued thus far. The vast majority of people, while trying to get creative to get around some things, have been compliant whenever we've contacted them. We have a very rich history here in El Segundo, nearly 100 years of strong community bonds and strong engagement with the community. And what we don't want is the police officers to be driving around and playing a game of gotcha at every turn of the corner and destroying that relationship that we've worked so hard to build. So for that reason, we celebrate and we appreciate the compliance that we've gotten thus far. We will continue to take a warn first, cite second approach. If you do see things that you believe are in violation, please give us a call, and we have had many of those calls and we've come out. We are also patrolling areas of the city where there is a higher likelihood of people gathering or entering the parks in violation of the orders, and we have warned those people on the occasions that we find them there.
Thank you, Chief. And the next question for Incident Commander Leyman. Jeff, why is there a discrepancy between numbers reported by the CDC, the California Department of Public Health, and the LA County Department of Public Health?
All right, Randy, that's probably the number one question I get asked. Let me explain how it works. The Center for Disease Control has 57 reporting districts, meaning there are 57 different entities that report to the CDC. The way they get their information is it starts at a county level, moves to a state level, and ultimately to them. So for example, a person dies at a hospital in a county in another state. They report that death to their county. Their county does what they do with that information. At some point, the county relays that information to the state. And at some point, the state relays that information to the CDC. So they get the information last. The state does, or I'm sorry, the CDC gets the information last. Every reporting district has different rules. There are some reporting districts that won't report anything to the CDC until they have an actual death certificate. So it could be that one reporting district is reporting things to the Center for Disease Control within 24 hours, but it could be another one is waiting a week for a death certificate. So their information is not as updated as we would like it to be, or it's possible for them to do. So for here in LA County, if someone dies in a hospital, within hours, it's reported to LA Department of Public Health. So the information we get from them is the most current. If you're interested in the most up-to-date information, the most up-to-date statistics, I recommend you focus on Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And I'll use an analogy, by the way, for the way that the CDC gets the information. If you've had a kid that's gone to school in the last 20 years, their report cards, all their grades are done online. And like I've had it with one of my daughters where her math grade was bad, and you hey, why is your math grade bad? And you look back and you realize that there's been 2 tests and 5 homework assignments that she has taken since the last time the teacher logged in and updated the grades. So it's just not current information, and that's what's going on with the CDC. No fault of theirs, really no fault of the states. It's just the systems that they have in place. And one more thing, Randy, while we're talking about those numbers and stuff, another question that's come up to me before is the COVID-19 positive numbers for El Segundo. So we're at 30. Now, that does not mean that we currently have 30 positive people living in our community. the testing began in early March. So we have had, since the testing began in early March, 30 people come up COVID positive. Many of those people have recovered. The vast majority of those people have recovered. I think it's about a 2-week recovery time. And so they're COVID free. But that number reflects how many people have been positive for COVID. That's it. Thank you.
And Jeff, just hang with me for 1 second there. When you say it's tested positive for COVID, so there could be a number out there that we don't know that hasn't tested for it. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of people haven't tested. Probably the majority of people still haven't tested. So we wouldn't know if they were COVID positive or not. And if you're interested in testing, it is available to all Los Angeles County residents. So if you're out there listening, go to the El Segundo website and we'll walk you through how you do it. You do have to have reservations, but we have a couple of testing locations that are close. It's supposed to be pretty quick and you get your results pretty quick too. So recommend that. At least go on our website and take a look at it and see if it's something you want to do.
Thanks for that, Jeff. And our next question is for Dr. Cohen. Doctor, why are we waiting to prolong releasing the healthy several months from now when the flu season starts back up? And this is a several-part question, I apologize, and why not start releasing everyone now so we don't have 2 deadly viruses raging at the same time and let the spike happen now and not during the flu season? Is there a particular goal that we're trying to meet as a community, or just keep everyone home until there's a vaccine and assume everyone will get it?
So multi-part question, so obviously there's a couple of issues here. First, social distancing and universal masking, they're both fantastic ways of avoiding coronavirus, but they're also great ways of avoiding influenza and other viruses in general. So as a community defense, there will be additional protection when the traditional flu season starts. Now, the goal of the safer at home order is not to keep everyone at home until there's a vaccine. If it was possible to have a vaccine in the matter of a few weeks, I suppose that might be proposed, but vaccines take much longer to develop. The idea of keeping people at home and distanced is to limit the spread of a very contagious and very deadly disease. This limits the number of people that any one infected individual might expose, and so the overall number of affected people can be kept lower. This, of course, goes back to flattening the curve by preventing huge spikes in the number of patients that could otherwise overwhelm the medical system. So there's no quick cure for this disease, and supportive care is the mainstay of treatment right now. So if there's not enough hospital beds, not enough oxygen tanks, not enough ventilators, or even not enough doctors and nurses to care for those patients, then certain people who could otherwise survive their infections might not. So we do whatever we can to limit the spread and hope that not everyone will get it.
Thank you, Doctor. And now we'll move into round 2. And our first question for Council Member Carol Pirsztuk. Ma'am, if I am a low-risk, non-essential business that is allowed to reopen, are there specific requirements for my business?
Yes, there are. As was mentioned earlier, we're moving into phase 2 of the rollout. And it's important that you stay abreast of what the requirements are to open up. So we as a city have ensured that all the guidelines are on our website. So, and they're broken down by types of business. So if you go on our website, there's a checklist of the things you need to do to ensure that you are ready to open and are compliant. One of the requirements is that you do post something on your window of business. So please make sure you're going to our website to get that information. And if you have any questions, please make sure you call our Joint Incident Task Force. Once again, that phone number 310-692-1699. And back to the chamber, their phone number is 310-322-1220. That's 310-322-1220. So there's a lot of resources here for you to help you get through this. Please use them and rely upon them. It's important, even if you're nervous, afraid, or don't think your question's too big enough to call, please call, because we are here for you, and that's why we're here. We're your support. So we want to make sure that you call us or reach out to us, because we want to ensure that you're successful as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And the next question for Councilmember Scott Nicol. Sir, are the dog parks open? And if not, when will they be?
Randy, thank you for this. Unfortunately, the answer is no. Following the LA County revision of the order last Friday, the city evaluated what parks and amenities we were allowed to safely reopen, and unfortunately, the dog park was not one of those. If and when it does reopen, I'm sure that physical distancing will need to be maintained, as well as the wearing of face coverings whenever in close proximity to others. We understand that people desperately want the dog park open, and we, just like you, are getting our orders from the county, and we will make adjustments as allowed per the county order. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, sir. And our next question for Director of Recreation and Parks, Meredith Pettit. Meredith, when will the pickleball courts open? And also, what will the guidelines be? And can you give us some insights into other sports that or facilities that might open up in the near future?
Sure, thank you. The pickleball courts are not open yet. We don't know the exact date of when the pickleball courts will reopen, but it is likely that pickleball, along with tennis and paddle tennis, will be one of the first amenities and active features that we will be able to open, possibly within the next 1 to 2 weeks. When we do open, there will definitely be new guidelines in place, and the rules that we are exploring at this point would include limiting the number of players on the court at one time, possibly only allowing singles play at first, maintaining that physical distancing, and requiring individuals to bring and only use their own personal equipment, and potentially requiring advanced reservations to help monitor the amount of people coming and going at any given time. We are monitoring other facilities in the area, and I would imagine that most tennis and pickleball facilities will have some consistent guidelines across the region, and that should help everybody get used to those. As far as the other sports courts and ball fields, those are typically used for team sports or contact sports. And again, we don't know the date, but those will definitely be in a later phase of the reopening process.
Thank you, Meredith. And our next question for Dr. Cohen. Doctor, is it safe to drive with the windows down, and can the virus float through the air and potentially infect us that way?
The short answer is yes, it is safe to drive with the windows down. Coronavirus and the virus that causes COVID is a respiratory virus that's transmitted from person to person, but it's transmitted through particles. So it's carried within small droplets that are carried into the air, but only go limited distance before they fall to the ground. Studies suggest that 6 feet is a relatively safe distance to assume that they're going to have already fallen, which is why we recommend a 6-foot distance in between people. But being in the car with the windows down, those particles should not actually get into the car, and it should not pose any real risk.
Thank you, Doctor. And our last question for this particular round is for Incident Commander Leyman. Lieutenant, what are the services available to senior citizens, and is the Great Plates program that I hear a lot about available in El Segundo?
This is something that we as a city should all be proud of. Ryan Delgado with Recreation and Parks and his committed and congenial crew out there keeping a close watch on our seniors and doing a fantastic job. We have the Rotary Club that's still doing a food and medication delivery. We have the Doctor Dial-A-Ride program. It's on Thursdays. If one of our senior residents has a doctor's appointment they don't think they can make it to, or they have no way to get there, they can give us a call. The library is still doing book deliveries on Monday, so I'll give you the numbers at the end, but you can give them a call and have something from the library delivered to your home if you're a senior. The Bridge Church is still doing welfare phone calls to anybody that wants some. If you just want to talk to somebody, you're feeling lonely, you're just anything that you feel like you want to talk about. Over at Park Vista, we still have the nurses there on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, just checking up on the residents. And Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels is still rolling. We have a lot of customers with that, and it works fantastic. So you brought up Great Plates, and Great Plates, it's a pretty neat thing that the state has going on. but we compared it to our Meals on Wheels program, and we pretty quickly figured out our Meals on Wheels program is more comprehensive. It's a lower cost. The Meals on Wheels folks are experts in dietary restrictions. A lot of our seniors have dietary restrictions. We have an ongoing relationship with them. It's been going on a long time. We haven't had any issues with Meals on Wheels. So simply put, Meals on Wheels is meeting all of our needs, and there's no need to take on another project or another program. Now, having said that, I think it's really important for all of our residents to think very carefully about when they're eating out. Make sure that you're taking care of our El Segundo restaurants and businesses. We have the Gundo to Go program. You can order food ahead of time and swing by and they drop off your food. Or you can order on one of those delivery things like Postmates and order food from almost any El Segundo restaurant. So we want people to be thinking about it. I know we certainly at the command post, we're eating food from our restaurants every day, and just something to think about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And as we enter round 3, our question for Councilmember Carol Pirsztuk. Ma'am, I'm worried I won't be able to pay my rent for my business. Is there any protection for me?
Yes, there is. The LA County issued a temporary moratorium on all evictions for both residential and commercial properties. That for tenants that have been impacted by the COVID-19, and that started in March 4th and goes through May 31st. And then basically what it says is that a landlord cannot evict you if you can show the inability to pay your rent as a result of financial loss due to COVID-19, or that it's because you follow the state agency code, or you followed the recommended COVID-19 stay-at-home precautions that were in place. So all this information is available to you on our city website. That really is a source of information. So please, if you have any questions about that, about your rent, please reference our city website. If you can also contact our incident management team. And then also, if you're interested in donating food, you may have a surplus of, what Officer Leyman was talking about is that we have a program in place here called CASE, and it's a program where we have food storage for residents in town who are in need of food, and no one knows who they are. They just can come and have access to the pantry. And if you're interested in donating to that program, please call at 310-767-0670. Once again, that's 310-767-0670. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And the next question for Councilmember Scott Nicol. Scott, this is a big one. A lot of talk about this week. When will the beaches open, and what are the protocols that will need to be followed?
It's a pretty good setup there, Randy. A big one. I know this has been something that people have been very anxious to find out about. Los Angeles County beaches will reopen tomorrow, Wednesday, May 13th, for active recreation only. I repeat, for active recreation only. This is surfing, swimming, walking or running on the beach. Unfortunately, parking lots, bike paths, piers, and boardwalks are to remain closed at this time. You also have to abide by physical distancing while you're on the beach, and you have to wear face coverings when not in the water. So understand that there's a lot of nuances to this order. The beaches will be open, but you cannot drive your car down to the beach and find parking. We encourage you to walk down to the beach to continue social distancing, but really it's the concept of using the beach like many of us have continued to use the parks in somewhat of a passive manner. I hope that information finds all of you well, and don't kill the messenger.
Thank you, sir. And the next question for Dr. Cohen. Doctor, I keep hearing the term herd immunity. What is it, and what relevance does it play in the pandemic?
So herd immunity refers more to population or community immunity beyond the level of the individual person. When a disease spreads throughout the community, it spreads because there is one contagious person near an uninfected, vulnerable person. But when enough people are immune to or vaccinated against a certain disease, germs can't travel as easily from person to person, and the entire community is less likely to get the disease. Essentially, these immune people act as a blocker to the rapid spread of disease throughout the rest of the population or the herd. So if the infected person only comes into contact with immune persons, then the rest of the community won't be exposed. Thus, when a critical portion of the population is immune, the disease stops spreading and you have herd immunity. For COVID, it's estimated that we would need over 70% of the population to be immune or vaccinated against the disease before it completely spreads, and we can consider ourselves to have that herd immunity.
Thank you, sir. And the next question for Director of Recreation and Parks, Meredith Pettit. Ma'am, is the 4th of July fireworks show canceled, and what about other events?
Yes, unfortunately, we've had to make the recommendation to go ahead and cancel the 4th of July fireworks show and event for this year, as well as other summer events like concerts in the park and family campout. Due to the county orders still not allowing gatherings or events of any size, the time and the resources needed to plan the event properly for the months leading up to it, and just the general unknown time frame in which gatherings of that size will be allowed in the future, we've had to make that difficult decision to suspend summer events and programming. Further discussion and details on this topic is slated for the City Council meeting next Tuesday, May 19th. With that being said, however, Recreation staff will now be able to refocus their energy and efforts on developing new and creative ways and virtual programming that will take a new spin on some of these traditional events. And we certainly encourage the community to celebrate and recreate safely.
Thank you, Meredith. And the next question for Police Chief Bill Whalen. Chief, with the loosening of restrictions, may we now invite friends over to sit on the lawn 6 feet apart and have a chat and or a beverage?
Well, unfortunately, the answer to that is no. We've seen quite a bit of creative things going on in the community over the last month or so, and while I appreciate creativity, folks, the order still stands. No gatherings inside or outside your house with people who don't live together. So we've discussed on this program the potential for going down to the beach or to the parks and picnicking and that type of thing. If you're within your family unit or the unit that you live with under the same roof, that is allowable. You're not supposed to do it with people that you don't live with. That's just what the order is. And the same would hold true for your front yard. Even though you might mark the ground in your yard at 6 foot increments and those types of things, if it's not the people that live in the house, by the county order, it's just simply not allowed. So we would ask that you still continue to hold fast to the directives that we've been given. Keep doing the great work that you're doing, and we will get through this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. And that ends our third round. As we move into our fourth round of questions, the first question is for Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss. Ma'am, if I can't come in to pay my water bill, will I be charged a late fee?
So this is a great procedural question. City Hall is up and running and operating normally as possible. So yes, we are collecting the water bills, fees, and unfortunately, we are still assessing late fees, but there are a lot of different ways to pay your bill without actually coming in to the counter to pay it over the counter. So if you go to elsegundo.org, and then there's a little icon underneath the main hero image, or the big image on the top of the page that says water bills. So your pay water bill, even more clear. So you can go there and you can pay online. You can pay with an electronic check, which is a free service, or if you pay with a credit card, there is a fee related to just the processing of the credit card. You can set up automatic payments where the water bill amount is deducted from your account. You're given 15 days notice that the deduction's coming, but that helps to alleviate any concerns about late payments. You can also just do it the old-fashioned way and drop the check in the mail. The address, I think it's on your screen, but it's P.O. Box 101426, Pasadena, 91889. Or you can just walk to City Hall and you can drop it. There's a water payment box right outside of council chambers. And you can drop your check in there and pay your bill that way. But I think most importantly for this conversation is if you're having a hardship due to COVID-19, you're you're out of work or you're ill, please give us a call. We can work something out with you. We want to make sure that we address the concerns of each and every member of the community. So if there is something going on and you're not able to pay, please give us a call. That number is 310-524-2319. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I love the fact that El Segundo is so small and such a great community that we can look out for the individuals the way that we do. Next question is for Police Chief Whalen. Chief, are parking violations being enforced?
This question comes up quite a bit. There are 2 parking violations that we have chosen not to enforce during this pandemic. That is a 72-hour violation and the street sweeping violation. All other parking violations are in effect, whether that's blocking driveways, parking in red zones, parking in handicap spots. And really there's 2 reasons why we are not enforcing in particular the street sweeping violation. One is just from a logistical standpoint. With a directive to stay at home, it's very hard to do the shuffle of cars throughout our community to keep your street clear. And secondarily, from a compassionate standpoint, we understand that this pandemic has caused some tremendous financial stress on many people. And so we don't want to add to that. All that being said, however, we are going to have to get back to where we were before. It's important to understand why we have street sweeping to begin with, and that is to keep our town looking beautiful, and for all the reasons that all of us came here and that you moved here, and that's an important part of it, is keeping our streets clean. And with cars on both sides of our streets, and you know that some of our streets are narrow, the streets aren't getting clean like they should. So we do need to get back to a time when we move the cars. And during the last town hall, I asked if at all possible for people to voluntarily move their cars during days when the street sweeper would come through. And arguably, we haven't had much success with that voluntary measure. And you know, I live in town. I know as much as you guys do how much of a issue it is to move the cars. And believe it or not, and some people probably won't believe it, I've actually received a street sweeping ticket that I had to pay for because I forgot to move my car in time. So I get it. I totally get it. But we are having discussions about getting back to where we're going to have you move your cars. I can promise you this. When we do this, it will be communicated through all of our mediums. Please make sure if you're not following us on social media that you do, that you're checking our website on a regular basis for updates. We will provide ample notice. And then when we start, we'll start with warnings. We won't start with actual citations, but these will be paper warnings that we put on your car. And then following that, we will begin again issuing citations so that we can get that movement of vehicles off the roadway. If you have any questions about this, please get a hold of us. Let me know. From a time frame standpoint, we don't have that identified yet. We're really trying to see where the county orders are going to take us. And when we start seeing more businesses opening up and we know that more people are going to be able to leave their homes, that is the mark that I think we're looking for to start phasing this approach back into normalcy with our street sweeping.
Thank you, Chief. And next question for Dr. Cohen. Doctor, what are the different types of testing and what are the benefits and drawbacks of each?
So there's 2 basic kinds of tests at this point, or 2 basic classifications of tests. And as of this week, there's 3 different tests themselves. It's essentially split into looking for active infection or looking for previous infection. So the kind of tests that look for active infection are the ones that are the nasal swab or the oral swabs, which are basically looking for evidence of the genetic material of the virus, so that the patient actually has the infection, they are infected, and are potentially contagious because they're shedding the virus at that time. So we use a nasal swab to try to get some of the secretions. Sometimes there's an oral swab. There's a couple of different types of tests that have been authorized by the FDA at this point. In general, they're looking for the actual genetic material. As of this week, there's a new type called an antigen test that's looking for a specific protein on that virus as well. So those specific tests are looking for people with active infection. Now, the quality of that test and the sensitivity of the test depends really on how infected that patient is, whether they just got infected, whether they've had the virus for a few days, because it takes a little while between the moment that they are actually infected to the moment that they're actually shedding enough virus and therefore producing enough of the viral genetic material for the test to detect. The other issue is that in order to get a good sample for the nasal swabs, the swab actually has to go in fairly deep, and it's a fairly uncomfortable procedure. So if a patient's not able to tolerate the actual swab itself, we might not get enough of the material to get an accurate test. So that particular test that's looking for active infection sometimes will miss up to 25 to 30% of active infections. The other issue is that if people have been infected for a while and they're 8, 10, 12 days out, they may not be producing enough of that genetic material anymore for the test to pick up. So it's a good test when people first start having symptoms and they're shedding a lot of virus in terms of finding out who actually has the infection at that time. The other test that's become a lot more popular lately is the antibody test. So this is a blood test that looks for evidence of an immune response, suggesting that you have been exposed to that virus and that you've developed an immune reaction and therefore are producing antibodies. Now, the immunity tests, the antibody tests, basically are looking for two different types of antibodies. One is called IgM, which is kind of an acute antibody that's produced when you're actively fighting the infection. And the other is IgG, which is more of a memory antibody that your body, a memory antibody that your body produces as a defense so that if you ever see that infection again, it can very rapidly attack it. So when you have the blood test, the test actually looks to see whether you have the IgM, suggesting a very recent infection or active infection, or whether you have the IgG, which suggests past infection. So, and some people will have both if they're kind of just in the first 2 to 3 weeks of having the infection itself. Now, the problem with the antibody test is that we don't necessarily know whether having antibodies is truly protective. It just says that you've had an immune response. And we do know from clinical cases that there are people who have antibodies who are still sick. We have people who seem to have recovered from infection who become infected again, they become symptomatic again, or they start shedding the virus again. And the other issue that we have is that with previous coronaviruses, such as the original SARS or MERS viruses from the last decade, we know that even having the antibodies doesn't provide long-term protection, as the antibody response tends to wane after a few years. So 1 to 4 years is the estimate right now. So we know that there is an immune response that we can look for. We just don't know how protective that immune response is. So even if people have taken the antibody test and know that they have antibodies, that is definitely not a guarantee that they have protection and not a reason to go out without a mask or to be around other people who may be symptomatic. So if you do think that you have an infection, as it was mentioned before, the LA County does have a bunch of stand-up free resources where you can go and get tested. That will be the nasal swab. That will be or nasal swab or an oral swab to look for active infection. There are other tests, other resources through primary physicians and that can get the antibody test as well, or the regular swab. But testing is definitely the best way of determining how extensive the spread of this virus is right now. Trying to figure out where the hot spots are going to be and trying to ensure that people who may have the disease without even having symptoms take special precautions to avoid spreading it to others.
Thank you, Doctor. And our last question for Director of Recreation and Parks, Meredith Pettit. And Meredith, I know we've had some good news in this last week. So it's about the golf course. What are the new rules for golfing at the lakes?
Sure, yes, thank you. So as many people know, the Lakes Golf Course and driving range were reopened as of this past Saturday, May 9th, with the new guidelines for employees and visitors to follow. So I will rattle off, there are a bunch of them, but it's important not just for golfers, but these are typical protocol that you'll probably see and other parks and recreation facility reopening as well. Specific to the lakes, however, while on the property, it's important that all visitors maintain a 6-foot distance between all other patrons and employees. Tee times must be booked in advance, either online or over the phone, with prepayment by credit card whenever possible. The golfing groups are limited to 4 people maximum, and golfers with tee times must check in at the check-in window, but no sooner than 20 minutes prior to your tee time. All patrons are requested to wear a face covering when approaching the pro shop window to check in or to purchase a bucket of balls. Additionally, all visitors must bring their own equipment and no sharing is allowed. There are no pull carts or clubs available for rental at this time, and the holes have been modified to limit contact with the cups and the flag sticks. Scorecards, pencils, and rakes have been removed from the premises, and we please encourage you to bring your own water bottle and avoid shared drinking fountains. Additionally, the restaurant and the golf shop are closed. The restrooms are open, and there is some limited packaged food and beverage options available through that pro shop window. And to make your tee times or to learn more, you can call the Lakes direct at 310-322-0202 or visit www.golfthelakes.com. Thanks.
Thank you, Meredith. And that concludes our round of questioning. I would like to thank all the viewers for tuning in. I would like to thank all the city leaders and especially our city council who has made the time to make these virtual town halls happen. It's a very unique opportunity for us to interface with the community, and I appreciate your participation in these virtual town halls. I especially like to thank our public information officer, Kristen Miller. She's been working tirelessly behind the scenes, not only to make these virtual town halls happen, but also to make sure that all of our communications goes off without a hitch, and that our website is updated with the proper information, and that we have all our speaking points and everything else that goes into managing information during an incident. She's been doing an outstanding job. But with that, I'd like to personally invite all of you to sign up for the various notifications El Segundo offers to stay informed about COVID-19 and other emergencies that may occur. So please go to www.alertsouthbay.com and sign up for emergency and non-emergency alerts. You can also text 90245, our zip code, to 888-777 for COVID-19 specific information. You can always sign up for the daily update at elsegundo.org. I would also encourage you, while at home, to have El Segundo TV on Spectrum Channel 3 or 22 and AT&T Uverse on 99. Have that on in the background, where we have provided numerous COVID-19 related public service announcements to keep you informed about the different things that are involved with COVID-19. Lastly, the city has activated a joint information center. You can call us at 310-692-1699 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And on behalf of the City of El Segundo government, I thank you for watching, and know that we will be relentless in our pursuit to keep you safe and healthy, informed, and cared for. Thank you.